Welcome to the Unapologetic Heroine podcast, where myth is made manifest. As the author of The Way of Inanna, a heroine's guide to living unapologetically, this podcast is based on Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love and war who embodies multidimensionality and lives unapologetically true to her heart. We showcase the wisdom of individuals courageous enough to do the same. These are inspiring stories of what it takes to be authentically who you are. My guests honor the wisdom of love, embrace the polarities of being human, and walk their truth. I am your host, Seana Zelazo, licensed psychotherapist, intuitive channel, and author of the book, The Way of Inanna. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hello and welcome. It is such an honor to connect with my guest today and to share her brilliant work with listeners. Madeleine Hay is a formerly Nantucket-based artist, now living and creating out of Kentucky. The visual artist, dancer, poet, author of a forthcoming illustrated children's book, fashion designer, and interior designer, is the epitome of multidimensional, refusing to be bound by any one medium. With a degree in fine arts and fashion design from the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design, Madeleine ventured into the world of high-end fashion, working at Ralph Lauren and Alexander McQueen. She is currently the senior designer at Kathleen Hay Designs, and she has won numerous awards for her artwork. Her work has been showcased at Graphicus Gallery in Nantucket and the Artist Association of Nantucket. Today, her creative pursuits include digital and abstract painting and commissioned book illustrations and design. Welcome, Madeleine. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Seana. I'm so honored to be here and chatting with you.
I'm so excited for our conversation. For over the last century, art has been a primary medium through which we have had access to the goddess Inanna. We have been able to experience the goddess of love and war through the efforts of temple scribes who left us her hymns and myths buried beneath the earth. We also know of Inanna through the poetry of Enidwana, the first ever poet to sign her name to her work. Enidwana was also a high priestess and princess who lived and wrote between 2285 and 2250 BCE. Her poems and hymns were preserved in clay tablets that were unearthed in the ancient city of Ur in 1922. This artwork serves as a portal to Inanna. But Madeleine, you yourself have created artistic access to the goddess. I am so fortunate to have had you illustrate my own book, The Way of Inanna. You have an uncanny capacity to channel the divine feminine, unapologetically standing in your role as an artist of the in-between, particularly through your own book, If as a Dream, a collection of artworks and poetry which came out in 2022. In it, you capture the space between waking and sleeping, the ordinary and non-ordinary states of consciousness, and explore the mystery between life and death. In 2018, I was living in Nantucket and attended your show, which featured your If as a Dream series at Graphicus Gallery. There, I saw what has become my favorite piece of art, Moon Mamas. I later bought this piece and it hangs above my desk, pulling me back in time to my own lineage as a moon priestess. In this piece, which is featured on the cover of my book, I see so many aspects of myself and certainly of Inanna. In fact, my office has become its own gallery space for your work, as I have many of your pieces. Being surrounded by your artwork feels like being held in the mists of Avalon, suspended in a space of magic that enriches me and my own creative process on a daily basis. It is surely an example of how art inspires creativity. Can you describe Moon Mamas for listeners? And can you speak to where you got your inspiration for the work and for your creative expression more generally?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I just want to thank you for all of those kind words. It's just so amazing for me to hear what another viewer sees in a piece of artwork. I'm very grateful for your words on it all. So yes, Moon Mamas, that piece in particular was the first sketch that I created for If as a Dream. And the kind of fun part about If as a Dream in regards to its inspiration is that the paper for it that I was going to use to create the works was lying under my bed for months because I'd found it and I thought it was so beautiful. It has that really gorgeous gold foiling in it. And so I literally was infusing my dream state into the paper and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And at the time I was dating my boyfriend from the Dominican Republic. So he obviously spoke Spanish. And there was a beautiful phrase in Spanish, it goes, si como un sueño. And it translates to if as a dream. And I can't remember where I heard it, but I just loved the beauty of that phrase. And then the sketch just kind of came downloaded to me of Moon Mamas, and all of the following pieces came thereafter. And so that was really the incarnation of that series. And it took me about start to finish 2.5 years to create that body of work. And it spanned a lot of trials and tribulations in my life. So that's the gist of it.
I love turning our trials and tribulations into beauty, as you have done. And it's so perfect because it really is open for such deep interpretation. And certainly all those who I have shared it with have seen different aspects of themselves in it. Certainly so many of the folks that I have in my circle connect with the beauty of the beach and that position of the horizon where the sea meets the sky. This seems to be a beautiful focal point for those friends of mine that I've shared it with. It seems to be this aspect of the piece that they zero in on. So I love this piece so much. Thank you. When my book came into being, I commissioned you for the illustrations because I knew that you could bring Inanna to life for readers. In addition to the cover art and your gorgeous rendition of the goddess, the Way of Inanna includes her family tree, as well as the 7 gates that correspond to each of the chapter headings. Swirls and circular patterns characterize the series of images and highlight the open and inclusive energy of the divine feminine in contrast to the linear energy of the masculine. Indeed, the ever-constant movement and evolution of life is captured in your work, and the undulating flow of breath is palpable for viewers. This is related to the actual technique you used to create the work, which is so unique. Can you explain your technique?
Absolutely. It is. So it starts as a very small pencil sketch, probably about the size of my palm in one of my sketchbooks. Then I take that to a larger scale of about 8 by 12, 10 to 14. And then I'll sketch it out so that it's exactly as I want it. Then I'll take a piece of tracing paper over it, take that under sketch and transfer to tracing. And then I'll cut out all of the pieces almost as if they are pattern pieces, like one would use to make a garment. So it's kind of interesting. This series crosses over my background in fashion design and now more fine art and two-dimensional art. And then from there, I'll take those little pieces, and it's almost like paper dolls at certain points. And I have to make sure they all line up correctly, and they are then glued down. And that's how the work is created. And I like to incorporate as much of the raw edge of this paper. And it's made by fair trade artisans in Bangladesh. So that was one of the big selling points for me on using this particular paper.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's so unique. And it really, it feels like collage. It feels like this beautiful sort of integration of what Inanna characterizes. She integrates all aspects of herself. So the way that you created this work feels very aligned with Inanna herself, most certainly. And you are similarly integrative as a designer, as a visual artist, poet, and dancer. How does the medium of collage in particular as an integrative art form speak to you personally?
Oh, that's a great question. I've never really thought about that, but let's see, the aspect of collage, my creativity, it really started out with ballet and dance. That was my first love. And when life took a different turn, I then went towards fashion design, and then art was always a part of my world. Since I was little, I was sketching. So I guess in certain ways, one could think of the different modalities that I express myself in creatively as a form of energetic collage, so to speak. And they all kind of influence each other, really. And I think that's why I love the paper that I used for Moon Mamas and Inanna and your gates in the book so much, because it has that flow and that movement. And there's something that there's something that the paper does that I almost couldn't do if I tried. It's just that organic nature that I loved capturing in the work.
I can see it so much. It's so beautiful. Madeleine, your work has such a deeply spiritual and empowering quality to it. In fact, Moon Mamas, the image itself, inspired my regular practice of a surf moon ritual. Once a month, my own sisterhood of Moon Mamas, like-minded women who are called to honor the divine feminine, gather together under the light of the full moon to surf before doing a ritual on the beach, wherein we release what we're ready to let go of and call in what our hearts are seeking. And I wondered if there is a way in which ceremony and ritual is experienced in your process as an artist.
Another great question. Well, first of all, I just have to comment on your sisterhood of surfers and the Moon Mamas that you all are, because I'll never forget when you first told me that story. I thought it was so just beautiful and romantic and very, but also dangerous in a way, because to be surfing at night, but there's such power and beauty in that. So after hearing that that's what inspired you from this piece, it just made my heart so warm. I thought that was such an incredible way to live one's life, to do that with a sisterhood. But I think there's a certain level of, I wouldn't say I'm totally ritualized in my practice of art. It certainly could use it, I think, to get me to be a little more productive. My creative muse, she's very fickle. So I will catch her when she visits, and I'll usually sketch things down like I did with If As a Dream. And then there's usually this quite a big surge of, I guess you could say, passion and motivation that kind of courses through me, and I just will produce while I'm on that, not to use this pun, but on that wave. Like it feels like surfing a wave, even though I've never surfed. I can only imagine it to feel that way. So in that sense, I guess my ritual could be akin to a surfer, where I've got to look out for the wave coming. I see it, turn the board, and then catch it. It doesn't come whenever I want it to. It has to be, I have to work with it, I guess.
I love that. Absolutely. And it's so perfectly captured in surfing for sure. And also the idea that you're speaking of as the muse shows up whenever she shows up, it's sort of like a swell. It's either there or it's not. And we would like it to be there every day, but it's not always there. Sometimes it's flat. I'm curious about your role, the role of intuition in your creative process, because in working with the muse, the way you're describing it, that sounds like a very intuitive process to me. How does intuition guide your work, Madeleine?
Intuition is probably the strongest guiding force in my work. I guess I don't want to speak for all other artists, but I can only imagine that most artists it's the same for them, and writers like yourself. It's hard for me to describe again, but the way it works, it's almost as if there's this a reel that constantly is going in the background of my psyche or consciousness. And when I'm in an open enough state, I will receive whatever it is that's being given to me. And I really feel much like a channel. I can't really take a lot of credit for what comes through me, because so much does. I don't do enough with it. And I'm working on that. I'm working on being better at taking what's been given to me and manifesting and making something of it. But it definitely, and it comes to me in my dreams. Like I had one wild dream once where an entire story was given to me, and it was actually on the night of a full moon. I'll never forget it. And I watched it like a movie. And that one's in the making. That one is a couple years down the road. I hope to get that one out into the world. But it's the intuitive process is very, very important in my work as an artist, I would say.
Wonderful. I can't wait to see that when that comes to fruition. Inanna is a leader who empowers her people by gifting them the May, the sacred laws of civilization, thereby supporting her people to cultivate heaven on earth through their own hands. I see art more generally as akin to the May, a gift that empowers, uplifts, and leads us back to source. Many of us have endured much suffering over the last few years, including through the global pandemic and the war in the Ukraine. How do you think creative engagement can support us during this particularly challenging time?
Oh yeah. So I'll say this, my first real connection with art as an adult, I would say a young adult, was when I was in high school. And this reality, it dawned on me that all the oddballs, the castaways, the kids that didn't fit in, they would always find their way into the art room. And I was one of them. I mean, I didn't look like it on the surface, but art for me was such a way of finding a home within myself before I knew that I needed it. And as times rolled on and I got older and then came into this state of the world that we're all in collectively together, this very challenging time, like you mentioned, it started to dawn on me that art is so necessary for not only to create. So each of us, I think, has an inner artist. I really believe that. It's just different ways of manifesting it, but also and artists, really, the artists of this world, the writers, the creators, they're brave people, because going into those dark spaces to create is not easy, but it's necessary for the race to consciously evolve, and especially as it's needed, like the time we're in. So, the paint strokes in a painting, it's really, Brene Brown talks about this actually in one of her short video series that she did.
It is such a brave pursuit. Absolutely. And I love that idea of you being so inspired by witnessing other pieces of art that speak to you. I can only imagine an artist's experience of art. And I just think that what you're speaking to is this beautiful, truly this idea that we all are artists, right? That there's this way in which we all are able to access our own creative center. And certainly your work has literally done that for me, hanging above my desk as I was writing, literally. So I appreciate the idea of art inspiring deep connection with our creative center so much. I just appreciate that so much. And another aspect of the work that you do is philanthropic. In 2021, you started Art for a Cause, in which you donate a portion of your artwork to a charitable organization that aligns with your heart. And this resonates with me so much. Linking art with compassionate service is a powerful reminder that we can create with intention. And this is linked very much with your newest project. Madeleine, can you tell us about your forthcoming book project?
Yeah. So, yes, I, like you, very, very philanthropically oriented. Wow, that's a big word. And it definitely, there's only so much that money can do. So I started to realize that ultimately it's about the energy being put into the work, and then the money that is generated to then be donated or given to an organization is important. But as important as doing that is really the intention of wanting to bring about just energetic and social change, I guess. And so in regards to your question, my forthcoming book, so this idea, I'll tell you this, I've been sitting on this story for, I kid you not, about 6 years. And it came to me as a fast download. I wrote it in a matter of half an hour. It's a children's book, so it's nothing. It's no novel, but, and it rhymes. So the entire rhyme and verse came to me, and I just knew it was a story that had to be created. And so I'm in the process of working through illustration style to really capture the words, but it's very much geared towards the idea of conservation, appreciation of the land, honoring nature. So that is kind of the premise of the book.
And I see those themes in the If as a Dream series too, in the way in which you highlight nature's a prominent force in your work. And I appreciate that so much. I can't wait for this to come out. And I'm really excited for you to bring this out into the world. Before we come to a close, Inanna emphasizes her own beauty, Wherever she goes, she makes a strong physical impression. Her presence is larger than life and her beauty is captivating. Bejeweled in her royal robe and lapis necklaces, she stuns, and she always wears her crown. As a fashion designer, you are in touch with the essence of using art to enhance our beauty. Can you speak to the ways that creating fashion and wearable art can shift our vibration and enhance our capacity to own our beauty?
Another amazing question. Yes, I was in a bit of a battle with myself regarding my love of fashion because there's so much noise about it being superficial, and certainly it's one of the most detrimental industries to the environment. However, I do think a lot of companies are getting better about their practices, but it's still, fast fashion can be quite detrimental. However, there's something very profound to be said for someone wanting to feel like they can empower themselves in their own skin based on changing an outfit, jewelry. I think we also too will reflect our own inner state of energy, so to speak. Like when I was living in New York City, everyone in New York City wears black, but I was wearing, these heeled, buckled, intense boots in black. And I just wanted to look tough because I'm very sensitive by nature, as you know, and I didn't want to feel like I was going to get taken advantage of. And it wasn't until I moved back home to Nantucket, where we met, that I started wearing, longer flowy dresses, and I felt comfortable shedding a skin, so to speak, and not wearing as much black. And I think that there's something really powerful in welcoming a sense of style into one's life and seeing how it transitions in different phases and periods, because it really does reflect our state of being. And it's an important thing to take into consideration. And even the people that say they disregard fashion as being extremely superficial, the clothes that they choose, it says something about them, whether you wear blue jeans every day or you need to be really tailored, or whatever it is, there's a certain level of expression that I think people that don't even try to recognize, they are expressing something about themselves in fashion.
And it's such a strong message that comes through in Inanna's mythology, this emphasis that she has on really being intentional about, choosing pieces that feel glorious. and I appreciate that as to your point, it doesn't read to me as a superficial statement, but rather a desire to literally own her glory. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for honoring your truth and for sharing your creative gifts with the world. Madeleine, can you tell us where we can find your beautiful art?
Oh, yes. So I have a website. It is www.the-untamed-creative.com. And all of those words are spelled as they would be in the English dictionary. And I have social media, but I'm currently taking a little break from that. But my Instagram handle is the same. It's @the-untamed-creative. And as of right now, I don't have any work in galleries, but it is all online. So that would probably be the best way to find my work.
I will make sure to include those links in the show notes for listeners to learn more. And I'm, as I mentioned, so excited about your forthcoming book and all that comes forward for you. And we will be able to find that all on your website. So keep an eye out for all the new beautiful gifts Madeleine brings forward. And finally, to our listeners, thank you for sharing this sacred time with us. May you experience fulfillment on every level with great ease and joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seana. It was such an honor.
Thank you so much for listening to the Unapologetic Heroine podcast, featuring remarkable individuals living their truth. For more wisdom on how to support your own journey toward honoring your heart and courageously alchemizing our world through the power of love, pick up my book, The Way of Inanna, A Heroine's Guide to Living Unapologetically, at booksellers worldwide.